But let me also be clear that that same child whom I love very, very much, if she were to ever raise a hand to strike me, maybe I'd kill her dead. And then turn around and be the last one crying at her funeral. You understand?
Doesn't matter if the snow is falling or the windows in the rain is pouring. It will always be Christmas in my heart.
Hello and good Tuesday morning. This should be Vlogmas Day 4, but I think it's going to end up being Vlogmas Day 3. I had some issues with Day 2 in that I couldn't upload and all of that, and I'll upload this tomorrow, which of course will be Wednesday. But anywho, all of that said, hello, whatever time it is for you, and thank you for tuning in to another day of Vlogmas. I am on my way to my W2. I'm feeling in good spirits. Speaking of spirits, it is Spirit Week, so y'all might see me looking different on the way to work throughout the week. Today is Hat Day, and you know I'm always in on some Hat Day. I can't remember what the other Spirit Days are, so although I try to participate, if I ain't feeling it, I ain't feeling it, I ain't gonna do it. But I'm always gonna do a Hat Day. I love a Hat Day. But anywho, off and on my way to work, I had a conversation yesterday, which is part of what I talked about. So I'll recap what I mentioned yesterday since I'm not using that footage. But I talked with a teacher who has not been teaching long at all. And it's the funniest thing. I've worked with several principals now, and a lot of times they ask me about being a mentor. And in teaching, when you're a mentor, it means you have to have meetings with that teacher sometimes. I don't mind talking with teachers. I don't want to do it formally, and I sure don't want you taking notes on everything I say, because everything I say might not be something that everybody needs to hear. I say that, and then I'm going to go ahead and talk in this conversation with you all, but I'm not a mentor because I feel that in order to be a teacher for as long as I've been, more than 20 years now, there are certain requirements. I call them requests, honestly. You're requesting that I do certain things, but I know better than to do that if my 20 will be 30, and I've known teachers who teach 40 years, bless their hearts, that won't be me. But I'm saying, I know those pitfalls that are laid out by even well-intentioned people. They don't intend for them to be pitfalls. But let me just, for example, you're giving us a ton of paperwork. I understand it. The state requires certain things. DESE, which is over the state, and they lay down the requirements, and all of that requires certain things. The districts require certain things. Then you have principals who require certain things. The most well-intentioned adults, they have all of these requirements of teachers, feeling that this is going to fulfill them more and this is going to work better, and it's just not the case. Sometimes it's a matter of they've been so far removed from the classroom that they just don't get it anymore. There are statistics, there is data that you can read regarding trauma-ridden kids. There is all of that, but until you're living and breathing it day by day, you really kind of don't know exactly what you're talking about. You know what I mean? For me, 9 out of 10, all of those things are highly requested. that is what they are, because what's really required of me is that I teach the children. That is a must for me. It is a requirement that I give them the things that I know are going to benefit them for the next grade. And at this point, I've literally taught every grade between kindergarten and 6th. So I kind of have a pretty good idea of what is needed to further a kid's education. Just in time to screw me up. I tell you the truth. Anywho, I'll take it as a time to talk with you all. So it is very important to me. I can't sleep nights if I haven't given my best to a kid to ensure that, yes, they're prepared for the next grade, or at least that they've grown so much this school year. You know what I mean? So let's not be mistaken. Kimberly ain't missing that part. Your kids are going to learn when they're in my room. One thing I cannot stand is for somebody to just sit in my room and just not learn. You think you're just going to sit here and do nothing? But believe me, when I come back over to you and you ain't got answers to things, oh baby, I'm going to have to find that time to make sure you got some answers to things. And Although many people don't agree with it, that time is usually recess. I mean, what I care about you going out to recess, when you wasn't working, you wasn't doing what you were supposed to do. When you playing in, you done already had your recess, baby. You had it all day. So this allotted 30 minutes that I'm taking, yeah, that's that 30 minutes that I took, because you just borrowed a good 6-7 hours from me. No. But there are people who are just absolutely under no circumstance do you take their recess. How does that work? How does that benefit? How does that push? How does that... Girl, sit in the classroom for a little bit. Sir, come have a seat and work with these children and you'll understand it better. There's this new wave, and it's so unfortunate, of children not having consequences. And it is the most unfortunate thing. I can't even think of what it's called because I don't pay attention to it. When I remember the term, I'll be sure to include it. But there are children who are allowed to do some of the most ridiculous things and then come back to school under the heading of trauma. This kid has endured trauma already. We are determined to provide them with the consistency of school. So no, we're not suspending them. We're going to send them to a buddy room. We're going to send them to a safe seat. We're going to And some of it, to an extent, I can understand. But by and large, let's be clear, actions that deserve consequences should darn well get consequences. Sometimes I hesitate on what to share, but this just needs to be said. Children should not be allowed to curse out and strike or threaten their teacher. And this is why I say I'm not mentor material, people. Children who curse out and strike their teachers really aren't children anymore. You stepped into a whole nother category at this point. I also feel that a student who curses and strikes their teacher is no longer a student. That person is an assailant. They need a consequence. Yeah, they do. You have stepped out of the category of being a student when you've done all of that, and it's time for you to get these consequences that assailants rightfully earn. But there's this move where that just isn't happening, and instead there is this gaslighting of sorts of teachers for us to believe that, hey, if you handle this well, if you address the trauma in the child, if you do this, that, a third, and another, first of all, they shouldn't hit you. But even if they do hit you, you should have an understanding of that. Yes, you should. Yes. Let me talk more about that when we get inside, because I'm getting ready to pull up to my school here. And I done got myself fired up. Okay, I'm showing you my banner as the current Teacher of the Year. And this is young Kimberly way back in the day. When was this? This time? Okay, so all kidding, jokes, and everything else aside, I wanted to get back to what we were talking about in the car with regard to me being a mentor, not being a mentor, and things like that. The banner I showed you, as well as the newspaper clipping that my mother has saved for mega years. I found that in her stash of stuff. I was like, let me just keep this. I might pass this on down to my granddaughter one day, and it's currently sitting behind me. But I showed all of that, not at all to brag, but as a reference. So I want you to understand that I am that teacher who genuinely believes in teaching. I see these people as just that. They're little people, but they are little people who need to be taught many things. And some of the things that we've taken for granted that they just learn at home, the bells are ringing, so I'm gonna have to make this quick because I have yet another meeting during my plan time and I need to eat during my lunch. But there are so many lessons that they need to be taught. And so part 2 of what I was talking about was kids shifting from being students into being assailants. I very much believe that. I think one of the biggest problems we have in education is educators. And I say that because a lot of us don't respect ourselves in this profession. When we allow children to curse us and hit us and then come right back to school the next day and everything is cheerful and great and jolly. First of all, we're not teaching them real life consequences because real life don't work like that. You think you can go out on the streets and treat people that way and get away with it? You think these cops are going to say, "Hi, welcome back," and that's not happening. So when we see the kids' behaviors get bigger and blossom and get worse, a lot of times it's because we weren't nipping some of that in the bud. We weren't giving them the natural consequences, the real consequences, and things like that. We have kids, there's this trend across the nation. I'm not saying this is occurring in my district, but I ain't gonna say it ain't. We have things where children aren't doing the work at all, getting promoted right on to the next grade. They're not even putting forth effort. You think these kids don't understand that no matter what I do, no matter how I show up, I still get to go on and go to the next thing? When I say that we don't respect ourselves as a profession, I'm saying that the mandates to not suspend and to allow these children to do things to teachers. When I tell you, baby, teachers are coming crying, and they come to me. I get it because I've been teaching some 20 some odd years. They have mentor teachers that they may or may not have some of the conversations with them that they've had with me. But I'm not going to say the cookie cutter textbook answer. I'm going to be honest. To survive this, and it almost feels like survival at this point, to be the teacher who goes on to teach for more years, you have to understand what really matters. You have to let go of the stuff that doesn't and focus on what really does. And for me, I choose making sure my kids feel safe. That means I can't have a kid running around here like a ping pong ball thinking they get to hit and do any old crazy thing and all of that. I can't have that. The move has been to, I know I'm skipping around, but like I said, the bell rang already. But the move has been to that, oh, we're not suspending kids. We're not having those consequences. One of the first people that don't feel safe is a teacher. Lots of teachers, y'all have seen it. I'm sure you've seen footage where these kids are throwing crazy haymakers on these teachers. Where did that come from? What gave them the idea that they could push a thing that far? Let me tell you, right here in some of these elementary schools, again, I'm not going to say it's mine, but I'm not going to say it's not. In some of these elementary schools, we have children who are hitting teachers. And the thought is, oh, they're small, I mean, it didn't do much damage. It didn't, well, these kids grow bigger and stronger, and they do more damage. And when I say that I feel like we don't respect our own profession, I'm telling you that if I were a pediatrician, not a teacher, but if I were a pediatrician and a child struck me, I would have the right to say, I no longer want to service that child. As a teacher, when a child strikes me, baby, I'd be doing real good if that child gets out of my class for the remainder of the day. A lot of times you can send that child out and just like a boomerang, they come right back. Okay, we talked to them, they filled out a sheet, they wrote an apology letter, and we're good to go. And then they do it again and again and again. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm that person. I do not see these people as students. They are assailants. They need consequences. That is the bell. Gotta go. See you later. Okay, so we got out with about 3 minutes to spare, and I can't really remember where I left off. I believe I was discussing my feelings about how we ourselves as professionals treat ourselves in this profession. I think we're one of the bigger problems with regard to what we accept, what we try to deem as okay, the gaslighting that occurs, and things like that. It's already a very hypercritical profession. And what I mean is in the sense that when kids take a test, let's say I have 20 kids in my classroom, 18 of them took that test. They were highly successful. They could be above average. They could be the bomb diggity. But what we're focusing on are the two who didn't. What am you going to do, meaning me? What am I going to do to make sure that those two become, the same as the other 18? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely teaching to all of the children. I'm absolutely teaching on all of the levels. But you can't consistently hear the what didn't you do right. You've done 18, 19 even right. What did you do wrong with that one? How can you fix that one? You can't consistently hear that without becoming a little bit downbeaten. And so as that happens in the profession, teachers are getting burned out. There needs to be much more celebrating of the what was done wells than it is focusing on the what was done wrongs. That doesn't occur. Like there are so many things that I could list out that are wonderful about teaching. I genuinely love teaching. I love my interactions with children. I love coming up with new ways to make them smile, make them happy, encourage them, make sure that they learn, get them prepared for life and the world and all of that. So I love teaching. What I find that I don't care for is being a teacher. Being a teacher means 50-11 meetings. Being a teacher means all the other things that I had talked about before. I don't want to keep going over that. But teaching, the true art of teaching, is not those things. And so when you have people who don't know what it means to teach, telling you what you need to do as a teacher, then they kill that love of teaching. So once we start writing that, then we can become that profession that so many people eagerly came into, but have just as eagerly left. I mean, in droves, right? So that's part of it. And then I think I mentioned too about students crossing over and becoming assailants. So let me clarify that. I ain't changing it. I ain't changing what I said now. I meant what I said. But to clarify it, I can say this. I love my daughter with my whole heart. If Jesus came down today and said, Kimberly, listen, we got a way that we can guarantee your daughter is going to be absolutely happy for the rest of her life. It's going to require you to lay down yours, though. I'd do it in a heartbeat. Like, there wouldn't even be that hesitation. But let me also be clear that that same child whom I love very, very much, if she were to ever raise a hand to strike me, maybe I'd kill her dead. And then turn around and be the last one crying at her funeral. You understand? So the idea that these kids somehow have gotten into their heads the notion that they can strike, hit, and do all these crazy things to me, and have it backed up by others who are saying, they have trauma, so yeah, we're going to send them to a safe seat for a little bit, have them fill out an apology, and bring them right back to you, babes. Do what you can, is ludicrous to me. And again, if I were a doctor, a pediatrician, a dentist, name another profession that deals with children, and that kid struck me, I would have the absolute right to say, yeah, I'm not servicing that kid anymore. And people would understand that. That same courtesy, that same understanding, I believe, needs to be extended to teachers. I gotta go get my kids.